Jimmy Lakey in the morning makes me feel alive. Woke me up this morning, now I'm up and on my way. Oh, 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 yeah, what a great way to start your day, the Lakey way.
Well, that's me, right? Jimmy Lakey. Nice to have you here. Everybody tuning in across America and really around the world. How's everybody in Bangladesh this morning? Good to have you here on the program. Lakey is my name, unleashed from the confines of corporate radio. Jimmy Lakey, or as producer Chad likes to call me by my dancing name, Palisade Peach. Only those of you in Colorado will understand that, but your little Palisade Peach behind a microphone, that sounds dirty, doesn't it? Well, you're welcome. Palisade Peach. Thank you. Nice to be here with you today. It's a Thursday edition of the show, September the 4th day of September, year of our Lord 2025, and pleasured, pleased, and thrilled. I hope you feel the same way. Wherever you're tuning in, I know a lot of folks are getting notifications on their phones or smart devices right now, and they're saying, oh, boom, Lakey's Unleashed. It's live, so people are starting to click in. Good morning to Rumble. I was telling producer Chad we don't hear from Rumble enough. It doesn't check in. He says, no, Rumble shows up, but I'm looking. I think we get the chats, but we don't get the counts on the Rumble, so I got to check into the Rumble. If you're on the Rumble, say hi-de-ho to us this morning, and we would love to have you comment. We'd love to hear where you're listening to us from. Also, I know a lot of you watch on different Facebook page. We're on Facebook.com/Red Wave America, the Media Equalizer Facebook page, my own personal fan page, Jimmy Lakey fan page. Wherever you're watching us on the Facebook, let us know what stream you're on. Maybe you're on the producer Chad stream. Love to hear from you wherever you're watching, listening, and participating in the programming today. Sheriff Steve Reams, coming up, one of our favorite sheriffs in America, happens to be the sheriff where I live in Weld County, Colorado. Steve Reams is going to be with us in just a bit, talking about ICE deportation, crime in America, the National Guard going to Chicago, all sorts of fun topics. And also, those of you that are Colorado-centric, you need to know about some new gun laws and lawsuits that have been filed against our dumb butt governor, Jared Polis, and the crazy libtards that run the state, known as Democrats. We'll talk to Sheriff Steve Reams coming up at what we call the quarter past the hour. That means 15 minutes after the top of the hour, so we're in the Mountain Time Zone. That'll be 8:15. Now, you do the math. If you're in the Eastern time zone, that'll be 10:15. America's favorite sheriff. I've dubbed him that now. Sheriff Steve Reams coming up on the program. Also, our old buddy Jeff Dornick from the new social media app, pickaxe.com, free speech app. We'll talk to Jeff coming up on the program as well. And then you don't want to miss it. Just about an hour from right now, our old buddy Jay Ratliff, our aviation and travel expert, gonna be with us, and we'll talk all things all things travel, all things aviation, and talk about a lot of great topics with Jay Ratliff. Always good to have Jay on the program. All right, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is just about to take a seat in the Capitol Hill hearing room, and he's going to get questioned by Democrats and Republicans. A lot of questions about RFK Jr. He made some changes to the CDC. He's saying we should start looking at some of these vaccine approvals, and he's raising some questions that a lot of us have had about the FDA, about the CDC, about the convoluted, incestuous relationship with the big pharmaceutical companies that the approval mechanism in Washington has had with this revolving door with Big Pharma. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. slowly but surely is unpeeling a little bit of the onion, and it's a good thing. And he's causing some controversy because always remember those people questioning Robert F. Kennedy Jr., just remember they're sponsored. They're like NASCAR drivers. They're like Indy drivers. They should have on their suit coats, covering up their piety, on their suit coat, they should have patches about who their big donors are. So as you hear, and I'm sure everybody's going to be looking for a soundbite today, they got to raise money, so the Democrats are going to be belligerent and Republicans are going to try to be thoughtful. Everybody's looking for a soundbite to sound like they have a freaking clue about health and human services and about vaccines. And, these politicians get up there and suddenly they become the jack of all trades, master of none. It's like Hillary Rodham Clinton. A lot of you don't remember this, but Bill Clinton, when he was elected his first term, had his wife Kankles put together what they called Hillary Care. It was a precursor to Obamacare, and America rejected it and said, what does this floozy have to do with healthcare? What does she know about healthcare other than she's a socialist or a communist? And this is what you're going to get at this hearing today. I'm just prognosticating and predicting. A lot of people going to be mugging for the camera, but I think the MAHA, or Make America Healthy Again movement, is actually quite popular. And I think it's good that we question some of these preconceived notions or previously accepted ideas. And because remember, despite what the little effort Dr. Fauci told you during COVID, science is always to be questioned. He said, don't question me, I am science. Well, science is always supposed to be questioned. You should always be questioning your hypothesis. You should be trying to prove your hypothesis. It is just a theory, and you should always be retesting these things. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to what we put in our bodies, whether it's chemicals on food, whether it's pesticides, insecticides, or whether it's something prescribed to you by your doctor. We should always be looking at that, because think of all the things that have been done medically accepted throughout generations, but no longer are accepted. And so I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. shedding a new light on a lot of our healthcare issues in America, including our diet, our exercise, and a nasty relationship with the pharmaceutical industrial complex. And I think that's a healthy place to be. Unfortunately, you're going to have a lot of politicians today that don't want to answer those questions, or even have those questions asked of them, because they have either brought the Kool-Aid and believe that science can't be questioned, or they have they're sponsored. They need the patches on their shirts. So again, as you watch the news bites this afternoon, this morning, they watch the evening news, and there's going to be some fireworks, I'm sure, at the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Congressional Oversight hearing. I'm telling you, watch out, and remember, they're always asking that question, not because they're really curious, not because they really have the best interest of the constituents at home in mind. They have fundraising, they have politicking in mind, and that's what that hearing, promise you, will devolve into, as they all try to have a gotcha moment with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The only thing that could maybe upstage the Robert F. Kennedy Jr., depends on the fireworks that the Democrats can cause, is that Trump is expected to speak to Volodymyr Zelensky today, our little buddy over in Ukraine. I don't know if he'll wear a suit for the conversation, because it's not a face-to-face, but Volodymyr Zelensky is going to update and get a briefing from Donald Trump. They're going to chat together. That could be some breaking news there as well. So lots of news to talk about, but watch the big story of the day they're developing at all the cable channels is they're really all geared up for some Robert F. Kennedy fireworks, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and that's going to be fun to watch. That's the narrative that they're starting to spin the web for, and that's where they seem to be putting all of their assets as far as media and news coverage today. That's going to be your top story. All right, Powerball. Anybody play the Powerball? It's getting big. It really is getting big. I think there was no winner twice this week already. So the jackpot, if it's called a jackpot, goes up to $1.7 billion. And the question producer Chad and I have asked in the pregame meeting of the pre-show is, as the Powerball jackpot gets big, does this cause some of you to go buy a Powerball ticket that you normally would not buy a Powerball ticket? How many of you are regular buyers of Powerball and or lottery tickets? How many of you do that regularly? And is there a certain amount that wakes you up and you go, I guess we'll buy a Powerball today? We hadn't never bought one before, Edith, but we're going to get one now. I'm just asking, how big does the jackpot have to get before you buy a ticket, or are you a regular buyer as it is? I told producer Chad said he was supposed to buy a ticket last night and he forgot. And so he's got to buy one today. Fortunately, there's no winner, because if he wins that $1.7 billion, if you take a cash in the lump sum, you're going to take away over $700 million. They'll take the taxes, send them off to Uncle Sam, and you'll still have $700 million. And I don't know about you, but I could live off $700 million for a few years. I think it's entirely possible for me to be able to do that. And, yeah, I think it'll be fine. I think I'd be fine with 700 million. So there's your question of the day. If you don't know what the question of the day is, I ask a question of the day and you give me an answer. Now you give the answer if you're watching on the YouTube, if you're watching on the Facebook, if you're watching from Rumble, comment on all the comment sections, and we should be able to see those here in the studio. And RJ says we buy a few Powerballs a month. I was thinking of this after producer Chad and I finished our pregame meeting. I said, I don't know if I know how to buy a Powerball ticket. Do you have to go in and pick your numbers manually? Like, I don't even know how it works. I think I bought one time. If I recall, there was a Powerball, something that went way, way high, and I was with some friends, and they bought a Powerball ticket, and I think I said, me too, but I don't remember anything else. I really, honest to goodness, I bought a lottery ticket one time. Not for me. I bought a couple of them, and I just went to like the 7-Eleven before a Christmas party for a company Christmas party, and I bought like 5 lottery. I just give me those. Give me, yeah. They just they pull them out and then they give them to you, and I that's all I know. I don't know how to buy a Powerball ticket. Do you have to do anything special? You just go, do you just walk? Because I don't be dumb. I don't want to walk up and go, hey, how do you play poker at the poker table? How do you play Powerball? And then the guy at the 7-Eleven counter has to explain, well, you have to go over here and that was an accent. Yes, it was. You have to go over here and fill out the paper. I don't know how to do it. Anyway, anybody going to buy Powerball? And by the way, $1.7 billion is a living wage. I think all of us could survive off that. And if you do win the Powerball, thanks to me, because I reminded you about the $1.7 billion, I would like to remind you that 10% of your winnings could be given away. And I have a charity called Rivers Promise you can help us out with. Anyway, how many play the Powerball on a regular basis? How many buy the lottery tickets? I think it was a Powerball ticket, but because had gone way up, way high, and I was with some friends. They said, you're going to get a Powerball ticket? And I said, I don't know how. How do you get a Powerball ticket? I don't know. And they said they got one at the counter, the little Circle K or the Stop and Go or the 7-Eleven or wherever they were at. They got it. And I said, I'll take one as well. And that's all I remember. I don't know. Did I have to pick the numbers? Anyway, $1.7 billion in Powerball. There's your question of the day. How often do you buy the Powerball, play the lottery, or does it have to get to a certain number to climb up there? I'd love to hear from you on that. So Powerball, $1.7 billion. And how many of you think you could live off that for a couple of days? You know, producer Chad pointed this out. He's glad he did not win last night, and he was distracted and did not buy a ticket, because if he would have won last night, he would have only gotten $1.4 billion. And, you know, that's not even, at some points, why settle for $1.4 billion, producer Chad, when you can get 1.7 on the Saturday night? I'm just letting you know. Producer Chad has his priorities, and he's not going to, 1.4, that's almost disgraceful to think that they were going to only offer the winner $1.4 billion when the winner actually is going to get 1.7 on Saturday. So, again, remember my name. If you win, Jimmy Lakey and Rivers Promise, there you have it. Shameless plug. But I'm not above being shameless. If you got $1.7 billion, believe me, I'm not going to be the most shameless person around you. You're going to have long-lost relatives. Your grandparents are going to come back from the dead and say, hey, could I borrow some money? Everybody's going to come out of the woodworks. Who would be the most awkward person you heard from? If you won the lottery and it became known around town that you won, could you ever keep it a secret? And if you couldn't, who's the most weird person that you'd probably hear from? Like your high school girlfriend, your high school boyfriend, your high school lover, your high school teacher. You're going to hear from somebody strange. The cousin that's the black sheep of the family that no one wants to be around. He's going to ask if you'll buy him some meth with that thing. I mean, I don't know how your family rolls, but I'm just saying. So anyway, there's $1.7 billion. Get your Powerball ticket. And if somebody would like to give me instructions on how to buy a Powerball ticket, let me know. Now, somebody just said we do quick picks on the Powerball. Okay, quick pick. So I got to tell the guy at 7-Eleven, I'd like a quick pick. I don't want to sound stupid. Do I ask for that? Do I say, excuse me, I'd like a burrito and a quick pick on the power? I don't even know how to do it. Arloa's, she's saintly as well. She's also very, very godly like myself. And she says they've only bought 3 lottery tickets total, and that was years ago. And since then, Arloa has repented, and she's not buying that gambling stuff anymore. I don't even gamble in Vegas when I go. I love Vegas, one of my favorite places. I could see myself living like in the penthouse suite above a casino, but I'm not going to be a gambler. I actually looked at moving to the Trump Towers in Vegas one time. I considered it. I haven't moved on that, but it's a possibility. But I love Vegas, but I don't gamble. Occasionally I will play the roulette, or I will play the some other game. I do that. All right, what else do we have here? Got to get the Sheriff Steve Reams coming up. Football starts up. Professional football starts up, I think, tonight, Thursday night. The Dallas Cowboys play the Philadelphia Eagles. And to all of you like myself that are in Cowboys Nation, I apologize in advance for the whooping that will probably take this season, thanks to Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys. So all of us Cowboy fans, we can now officially commence our commiserating sessions and our daily and weekly counseling sessions. And just know, Cowboys fans, we're not in this alone. We have each other For 30 freaking years, that's all we had is each other and a Botoxed, mangled mess of an owner named Jerry. Yeah, I think unchristian thoughts when I think of him, and I don't want to do that. All right, Thursday, September the 4th. Nice to have you here. Powerball extraordinaire. Glad to have you here. By the way, a lot of you reached out yesterday and said congratulations on the Gotcha Day. The 17 years ago yesterday, I walked out of an orphanage in Rwanda with my beautiful son, and the adoption was final. And that every day since then, I've thought about Rivers Promise, keeping Rivers Promise, our charity work. Some of you liked some of the stories I told. I brought some photos for show and tell. Next half hour, I'm going to show you some photos that from that period of life that I think you shall enjoy, especially if you like an inspirational story that has been known to bring grown men to tears. That's coming up second half of this hour today on the show. It's Show and Tell coming up with Lakey. All right, glad to have you here. If you bought the Powerball, if you're going to win the Powerball, let us know. Love to hear from you. And let's bring in Sheriff Steve Reams, America's favorite sheriff. I have dubbed him that. That is his new title. I'd like that to be on your byline. America's favorite sheriff, Steve Reams. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. How about yourself?
How do you like that new title?
You know, I mean, I've been called worse.
Yes, you have. I've called. You've been called worse. Not by me. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm so law-abiding, I don't even know how to buy a Powerball ticket. Have you ever bought a Powerball ticket, Sheriff?
Absolutely, I have. Yes, sir. It's pretty easy. Go ahead and tell them you want a quick pick for the Powerball, and they're going to ask you if you want any extras. Just say no.
Just no. What's the extras? Like popcorn or something?
Nah, you buy like these little extra, like I don't even know how to.
You don't even know. We're just going to say no matter what, because you're law enforcement.
Multipliers.
And Nancy Reagan told you to say no. Just say no, and you're still abiding by that. Just say no. Okay.
It's little multiplier games that they charge you extra for, and you know it decreases your odds of probably winning when it's all said and done.
Okay, not gonna do it. So a quick pick on the Powerball and just say no. Okay, I got this down. I think I can do this if I get there before I forget. All right, Sheriff, I've got a question for you. I have some things in my head that I really want to always, I love the president. I love his focus on law and order, but I have this kind of a tug of voices on both shoulders.
Yep.
When I hear him say that he wants to send a National Guard into, let's say, Chicago. Supposedly ICE is going to start off in Chicago. ICE is already staging, we hear this morning, for immigration raids, which I'm fine with. But our founders are very clear about military being used in American cities for law enforcement. Give me your thoughts on this. If Donald Trump, as much as we love the guy, decided I'm going to go to Weld County or Denver County and I'm going to send in the National Guard to get things in line, for goodness sake, isn't that something that could come back and bite us when we don't trust the person at the top in the future?
It's interesting that you word it that way, because when I was running for sheriff, one of the first time I ran for sheriff back in 2013, 2014, one of the first questions I got asked by everybody is, well, if the president were to send in, you know, federal troops to do some kind of enforcement, would you stand against them? And that's when Obama was in power. And so, you know, the obvious answer that people were looking for is, hey, you know, we want you to stand up to the federal government. And now a lot of those same voters are saying we'd welcome those federal troops in. And I guess it really is situational. You know, when you look at what the problem is right now, or what the problem is being defined as, is lawlessness in the streets. And I think there's a lot of people that feel unsafe in some of those cities: Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York. You could probably add Denver to that list. So I think there's a little bit of an acceptance that it's not because we just want to turn over and say, let the federal government take care of anything, but it's more of a support role that people are looking for with the National Guard. And I think there's just a point where it's gone too far in some of these cities that people are actually saying, we got to do something. And it's kind of that state of emergency. During the Obama era, I think the fear of National Guard was a little more of trying to suppress the voices of just your average citizen, is what people feared. So I don't know. I think it's situational. I'm torn on the issue. I'd rather just see local law enforcement do their job, to be honest with you. But we have some political leaders that don't see it that way. You know, they're not supportive of law enforcement.
if there was ever, God forbid, a President Kamala or President Hillary or President Big
Oh, yeah.
Mike Obama, I don't want them to send in the National Guard to enforce me using paper straws and Green New Deal stuff. And that's my fear. And I think it's a healthy tension. I think it's safe for us to ask that, even as people that endorse the president and like the president. I think it's a healthy conversation we should have, because we should always be looking, whether red team or blue team's winning, we should always be looking at that Constitution as our boundary. That's not a cult of personality.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. And, I support what President Trump's doing as far as cleaning up the country, getting rid of the illegal immigration problem. But there is a healthy balance. And, if he can offer support to local law enforcement so they can get things under control, maybe there is a situation where the National Guard makes sense. I think that's kind of the thing that they're doing in Washington, D.C. I just don't know that it's really being advertised that way. And some of that's just the political rhetoric that is out there.
I'm listening to Chicago. The mayor and the governor there are opining that they haven't been called. They hear ICE is about to start doing some heavy immigration roundups, which is in the federal purview. But they're complaining they haven't heard from ICE. They haven't heard from Tom Homan. As a local law enforcement guy, do you hear, do the feds, if they're going to do something like in Weld County, do they coordinate with you? Is that unusual for them not to be communicating?
No, it wouldn't be unusual. I mean, they have a mission, I have a mission, and sometimes those things cross paths, sometimes they don't. I can tell you that, just candidly, I have a good relationship with ICE. So if they were going to do an operation in Weld County, I'd probably hear about it. But if my relationship with ICE were one that, I was working against their end product, I wouldn't expect to hear from them. So, when the mayor and the governor in Illinois and Chicago say, we haven't heard from them, well, that kind of tells you where you're at on the enemies list when it comes to ICE. That they know you're not going to be a friendly supporter. Why would they let you know? You're gonna disrupt their operation, and it's unfortunate that's the situation we're in. But I don't blame them. I don't blame ICE at all for saying we're not going to give you a heads up, because you're going to thwart our efforts.
I know you can't speak for all law enforcement officers, but as a man in uniform and as America's favorite sheriff, you're welcome. I've got to ask you, I watch places like Chicago that are hell-bent on crime, 75 people shot over the weekend, 9 or so, a dozen dead every weekend, and Black lives don't seem to matter on the south side of Chicago. That's for darn sure. Can you help us understand what goes through, let's say, a law enforcement officer in Chicago, knowing that the city is hell-bent, spiraling out of control, has become a cesspool, a dungeon of crime, and their politicians don't seem to want to solve it? Or do police officers just kind of get jaded and say, well, que sera, sera, people are dying, no big deal? Or are they wanting to quit? What happens in the mind of a law enforcement officer that can't do anything?
Well, I've been fortunate to train and work alongside folks from agencies all across the country. When I went to the FBI Academy in 2007, I interacted with some folks from even other parts of the world. And yeah, when you lose the political support of your city, your state, it becomes survival mode. And officers who can leave and go to another agency where they feel like their work is still appreciated, oftentimes they do. But you have family situations, you have folks that just, they can't relocate. They go into survival mode and they say, well, if the city's not going to support our efforts, we're just going to basically go into a reactionary mode. So if these people shoot and kill each other, we'll go in and clean up the mess, and we'll wait for the next one. And it's not a healthy way of doing business, but officers, they're not going to stick their neck out any more than what they think they're going to be supported. We've run into that same issue here in Colorado with Senate Bill 217 when that was passed in the George Floyd era. There were a lot of cops that said, "Well, we don't feel like these politicians care about us," and it took a little while to kind of regain the trust of the officers, even in my agency, to say, "No, we got your back. We just got to change our approach a little bit." But there are places in the state that still don't feel like they have the support of the legislature or their local elected officials. And so, yeah, you see that slowdown, and it makes the situation that's bad that much worse. Chicago's a prime example for where you've lost your police agency.
Well, I'm sure if you're any good law enforcement officers out there, you could say, Weld County's hiring. Come on out.
Absolutely. We're getting to the point now, and I'll knock on wood when I say this. We actually have a waiting list of people who want to come work here in some of our positions, and that's a great thing. It's the first time I've experienced that in my 28-year career here. And I think that speaks a lot to the way we do business. We try to bring the best and the brightest, but we also want to bring people that are motivated to do the job and want to do it in a way that serves the citizens. And that's not necessarily something that's easy to find in the law enforcement world right now.
All right, Sheriff, you mentioned Senate Bill 217. Some crazy legislation has come out of Colorado legislature in the past several years. Jared Polis has never found a stupid-ass bill he wouldn't sign. I guess stupid ass is stupid does or something like that. Let me ask you, this latest legislative session, there's some new gun laws. They're going to restrict people's right to keep and bear arms. They say it won't. Basically, they're putting a lot of red tape bureaucracy just to get a basic permit. I've got to get permission from you to get the permit. Talk about these new laws that are hitting in Colorado. And a lawsuit was filed this week by the Colorado Safe Shooting Association telling Jared Polis to go pound sand and uphold the Constitution.
Yeah. So that lawsuit's focused at Senate Bill 3. Senate Bill 3 was the sweeping legislation that Tom Sullivan, Senator Tom Sullivan from down in Arapahoe County entered. His son was killed in the Aurora Theater shooting, and Tom Sullivan has made it his life issue to go after gun owners. So initially the bill was introduced as just a gun ban. And then when that was not getting the support he wanted, they changed it to this scheme for basically causing people to have to go get this really bureaucratic process to buy a semi-automatic firearm. And anybody that says there's exceptions to semi-automatic firearms in this bill hasn't really read the bill. But the long and short of it is this: if you want to buy a gun as of August 1st of next year, of 2026, you're going to have to go to a private entity and pay for a background check. Then you're going to have to bring that background check to a local sheriff, maybe not even your local sheriff. Your local sheriff will look at that background check that you've paid for and say, yeah, you're legally authorized to buy a gun. Now you can go take a class so that you can prove that you can handle a gun safely and all that kind of stuff. Once you take that class, they'll put you in a registry that says you can go buy a gun from a gun store, a semi-automatic weapon. And then at that point, you start into all the same processes that already exist. So you pick out the gun you want, you make the purchase, and you go into the 3-day waiting period if you pass that background. It's a bunch of unnecessary steps that will do zero to affect criminality in this state. Criminals don't follow the law. They're not going to follow this law. They don't obtain their guns legally now, and they're not going to follow the law in the future. This is solely to try to create a process where legitimate gun owners say it's not worth the time. And I don't think it's constitutional. I think CSSA's lawsuit filed I think it's going to do exactly what they intend. It's going to overturn this law.
I heard the mayor of Chicago saying Chicago's never going to be safe as long as red states don't outlaw guns, or red states don't control who buys a gun. Is it Red County, Weld County's fault that Chicago's got a crime problem? According to the mayor, it's our fault because his city's a hellhole.
That's the most ridiculous logic I've ever. It's not logic. It's illogical. Guns exist in the world. If you don't want gun violence, you're going to have to go back many, many years and figure out how to uninvent the gun. The problem is it's not gun violence. It's just violence where a gun is being used as the tool. You have criminal behavior, and they're going to figure out a way to do the things they want to do, whether you take the guns out of their hands or not. You go to England right now and look how many roving knife attacks they have with folks on the street because they can't get a gun, but they can still buy a knife. I mean, there comes a point where you have to outlaw the behavior and make the punishment severe enough that it dissuades people from going down that path. In Colorado, we certainly haven't done that. We've done just opposite. We've given the torch to the criminal and said, run with it, because law enforcement's they're not going to be able to fight back nearly as well as we used to.
As you know, Sheriff, I traveled to Africa, Rwanda, several times a year, and I'm telling you, they had a genocide in Rwanda where I go. 90 days, 1 million people died, and it was a gun-free society, but guess what? They still killed 1 million people with machetes and swords, and so evil people will always exist, and if there's evil on the streets of Chicago, it has nothing to do with red state people having guns. That's, as you said, illogical by that mayor.
Yeah, I always liken this to, I mean, every one of these gun laws is passed with the intent of, allegedly trying to stop crime, but it's always aimed at the people who follow the law. This would be like if we have DUIs in the state of Colorado, people go out and drive drunk and do stupid things in their car. That'd be like telling everybody that when you go to renew your license, because other people are driving drunk, now you have to take a class every time you go to renew your license. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But because it's guns, something that's constitutionally protected, the legislature just says, well, it's guns. So it's a different mindset.
Yeah.
They're not really looking for a cure for the problem. They're just looking for a way to overcome the Second Amendment. And I can't disagree with them more.
Yeah. One more quick question before I have to run. I got another great guest coming up. America's favorite sheriff is on the horn. Steve Reams, by the way, if you listen to the audio portion of it only, America's favorite sheriff. We got to get a big intro for you, Steve. Here's a question. I know some of our previous gun laws, having done years of talk radio in Colorado specifically, we were a shall issue state. A mayor it was shall issue. You submit this, they shall issue a permit. Do any of these gun laws take some of that shall or that imminency of issuing the permit? Could there be a politically motivated sheriff or a law enforcement agency that says, you know what, now I don't have to if I don't want to?
That's a great question. On this assault weapon, as they're calling it, this assault weapon purchase process, this de facto gun ban, I don't see anywhere in that bill where it's a shall issue process. So if you go and get your background and the sheriff looks at your background, that wording of shall issue, if it's there, I've missed it. So yeah, I think you could have a concern where a sheriff says, this, or let's say they also didn't put a time restriction on how quickly that background has to be submitted. So you go get a background and then you sit on it for 8 or 9 months. I can see where the sheriff would say, well, this isn't recent. So again, there's a lot of issues in the law that really aren't addressed. I don't know how they're going to clean that up. But yeah, it's that erosion of gun rights that just happens by 1,000 lashes.
Jim jumps in on the Facebook, one of our Facebook pages. They need to regulate the catapults, according to the local city council here. There's a lot of things they should regulate if they really want to, I guess, be consistent across the board. Sheriff Steve Reams, I was taught by the old movie Bambi, if you have nothing good to say, you shouldn't say anything at all. So I would like to say something good about Tom Sullivan, Senator Tom Sullivan. Seriously good. Sorry he lost his son at Aurora Shoot. That's tragic. I was ready to just come out and say Tom Sullivan, but he sponsored legislation, didn't get very far, to reduce the cigar tax in Colorado. He was the champion of reducing cigar taxes. And I said, Tom, why don't you just let me hate you? But he won't. He wanted to reduce cigar taxes in Colorado. So that
I know that's something that's near and dear to your heart. Look, I don't think the guy's evil. I just don't understand his mindset. And I never want to understand the tragedy that he's gone through. Yeah. I can't look at it through his eyes, and I don't understand how his brain gets to where it's at. But we all have to answer to our own calling. So
yeah, exactly. And I don't want to walk in his shoes. I'm sorry for the pain he's experienced, and I'd like to say, go Tom Sullivan. Stick to the cigar tax, okay? Stay out of my gun closet, please.
Absolutely.
America's favorite sheriff. I want you to put that on your tagline now. That's new.
The next time I'm on, I'll type that in.
You got it. America's favorite sheriff, Steve Reams. He's actually my sheriff. And don't try to get into the Lakey estate. He runs patrol here 24/7 to keeping you nefarious sons of guns at bay. So don't mess with me. Sheriff Steve Reams, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. All right, Thursday, September the 4th. Don't forget, we're going to have show and tell with Lakey here in just a moment. I brought some pictures to show you. Yes, I did. Yesterday, the 17th anniversary of my Gotcha Day with my son adopted from Rwanda. A lot of you love the story, so I wanted to take you back in time for show and tell in just a few moments, and it'll probably be one of the most inspirational stories you will hear all day. Some of you may get verklempt and get allergies in the eyes when I share these photos with you. I promise you that's coming up. But please, if you would, welcome Jeff Dornick back to the program. You've had Jeff with us before. He's the founder and CEO of Pickaxe. It's a groundbreaking social media platform that's built on two uncompromising principles: freedom of speech and freedom of reach. He also has a book out called Following the Leader. Jeff Dornick back on the Lakey Unleashed Streamcast. And if you're listening later, it's the podcast where thousands of earballs will hear us. Jeff, welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me back on. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Great to have you. We kind of alluded to this, I think, the last time we were together, but it seems to be more and more conversation about our federal government wanting to have shares and stakehold in certain companies. I know Intel has surrendered some shares or stakeholding places in their company to the federal government. You're a tech guy. You're in that social media tech platform as well. I kind of get a little bit worried about this. I mean, I like to trust the old Trumpster, but I don't know about this federal government getting involved in private sector industry.
Yeah, it's a little weird, and I kind of have a feeling that the founding fathers wouldn't be all over this. This is the thing, is that I think a lot of people, when they voted for Trump and they see Trump, they see him as a CEO, which he's been his entire life. He's a business guy, loves to make deals, all of that. And that's great when it comes to managing the White House and leveraging and negotiating and all of that. But when you begin to think, okay, we're going to begin to buy into companies and procure things and all that, now that's when you start getting into, okay, is that really the role of the federal government? I was concerned several months ago when the whole TikTok thing was going down, and President Trump was floating the idea of the United States government purchasing shares in TikTok and owning a majority stake in a social media platform, which would be very, very, I would say, a conflict of interest when you have a state-owned social media platform. Now we're dealing with Intel, and now Intel specifically. The main justification for the federal government, getting involved with them is that they always use the term national security, national interest, the whole deal. And they always use that as justification for overreach of the federal government. Specifically here, it's because they make a lot of the chips and a lot of the things for, the military and intelligence agencies and all that. So from that standpoint, you're just sitting there, you're like, okay, cool. Like, that makes sense when you're looking at it from, okay, what's in our best self-interest, but also on the flip side, does the federal government have the constitutional authority to actually do that? I believe it's the fifth Article 5 actually does not allow that. It gives specific restrictions as to what the federal government can and should be able to do. It's not actually investing in companies and getting a vested interest, and it also takes away their neutrality when it comes to enforcing the law, when it comes to making decisions that are the best for everybody. Now that the federal government has a vested interest in Intel, is legislation going to be passed? Is certain laws and rules and mandates going to be implemented that would benefit our vested interest in that company that would hurt other American companies? This is where you start getting into should and does the federal government have the authority and the right to actually do this kind of a thing?
It's fascinating because you mentioned the legislation. Will they be prone to be more pro-Intel, almost like their own version of insider trading because they own some shares or some stock in that? I don't think our founders would be happy with that either. I'm also kind of watching, and it's moving so quick. I'm talking like every week it gets bigger, better, and crazier. The old AI thing, and the Trump administration is really pushing AI. We need to be the leaders in AI, and that's part of this investment with Intel and becoming a shareholder there. Talk to us about AI. It's moving so quickly. The government seems to want to really be us to be the leaders in it. And yet, are the people that are going to get hurt by the sudden implementation, the rapid implementation of AI, just the average workers out there? I mean, the average folk going to go, well, I don't have a job anymore. AI can do that.
Well, here's the thing: is that I think a lot of people, they think, okay, cool, the manual labor jobs, they'll be taken away. Like, you're not going to be able to have a job at McDonald's anymore because they're going to be doing, replacing it with AI and robots and computers and all that. No, it's coming for everybody's job. And this is the thing: if you actually sit down and you listen to these AI, big tech CEOs, whether it's Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Sam Altman or any of these guys, what they're all saying, like all of them across the board, they're saying that AI is eventually going to replace all of the jobs. Both Elon and Bill Gates have discussed the idea that there will be no more need for human beings to be in the workforce at all, because AI and Optimus robots and all of that are going to fulfill all of these jobs. And you're like, well, how will AI, replace, ideas in human-centered, jobs? It's, because I think in everybody's mind, they think, okay, it'll replace the McDonald's workers. Maybe it'll replace, certain things like that. No, if you actually look at the Tesla promo video for Optimus robots, they're talking about Optimus robots actually being babysitters for your kids, teachers, becoming doctors, becoming attorneys. It's going to come for everybody's jobs. We're seeing this in the creative space as well. It's taking away a lot of the jobs in the film industry. It's taking away a lot of the jobs for musicians, taking away a lot of jobs for writers and authors and all of this. So when you're actually looking at it from that perspective, it's coming for everybody. And this really big push to deregulate the AI industry, I find very, very concerning from the Trump administration. Elon Musk is saying that the default position of the government should be no regulations. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, but AI violates our personal private property rights because it's plagiarizing and taking away stealing a lot of our content. It's also invading our privacy in massive, massive ways. And then on the flip side as well, we also have to look at the fact that whoever controls the AI is going to have control over almost every aspect of American life. And if it's going to be the government, you could say, okay, Trump, he's not going to violate our rights. He's going to use it to our benefit. What happens if Gavin Newsom wins in 2028? Yeah. What happens then if he has all the power that AI brings him?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, it used to be, years ago, you tell your kid, hey, don't go get that liberal arts degree. You'll be asking, do you want fries with that? You wanted your kid to go get maybe a degree or a certificate in technology, programming. You're going to be safe there. That's the wave of the future. Now there's stories that people that have degrees in computer science are not able to get jobs because AI is doing a lot of the coding and the programming that they studied and trained to do. That's what do you get your degree in there? I mean, if the coders aren't safe, ain't nobody safe.
Yeah, I think that the safest job in the short term is going to be the more manual labor type things. You want plumbers, you want construction workers, you want the blue collar workers right now. In the long term, I think they're going to eventually be replacing everybody with AI and robots. But in the short term, probably the more manual labor, blue collar jobs are going to be the safest ones. But I was actually told that one of the really big tech companies right now, they're actually implementing artificial intelligence and they're running a test where they're using AI to do all the coding to develop their platform, and that if it goes well, then they could let go up to 50,000 software programmers, and they would only need a handful of people to oversee and check the code that the AI is writing, and that's in the tech world. And so when you think about this, under Obama and under the last several presidents, they've been pushing all the STEM jobs, go in science, technology, all of that. Well, now all of a sudden, AI is going to replace all those jobs that we've spent so much time, so much money, and so much effort pushing all of our kids to go study that over going to a trade school and a blue collar job and working for yourself. Now you're gonna have all these people that have no actual real life skills that apply to anything that isn't being replaced by artificial intelligence. It's crazy when you actually think about it.
Jeff Dornick is my guest. A couple more questions for you, Jeff. I was out this morning, getting a walk, and I was watching some of the kids walk to school, and I'm watching them, and everybody's got their head down. No one's even looking across the street. They're all on their smartphones on their walk to school. And I went, wow, the genie's out of the bottle. We're never going to get this, that their heads from looking back up. And that's my fear. A lot of technology. It's nice to be able to track your kid or call your kid or text your kid during the day. But that genie is out of the bottle on the smartphone, and it's made our society, I think, a lot worse. And my fear is that the AI is moving so quickly out of the bottle. Its genie is out of the bottle. Where do we go from here? Because the prognosis that you're giving, and I'm talking about as well, it ain't good for all of us. But what do we do?
Honestly, it's checking out of the AI system and the big tech system wherever you can, and finding more human-centered ways to go about life. Because what we need to do is we need to create a parallel system that is human-centered, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do with Pickaxe, is have a very human-centered social media platform, but then use that to then leverage outside in real life human-to-human connections. It's like don't let your kids on a screen, because next what's going to be coming is they're going to be wanting to do implants of brain chips that connects your brain to the internet, to where all of a sudden now you don't need a smartphone because you just think it, and you can imagine it, and you can watch a movie but just by closing your eyes and watching something. That's just how crazy things are going to get. So it's checking out of the system. Don't buy into AI. It's going to save us all this time, which it does. But then also, what's the trade-off? We have to look at what's the long-term trade-off in all of these things. So we need to look at starting to be self-supportive when it comes to food, creating a community where you support each other, human to human connection. Go back to playing board games with your kids and reading books. Don't just sit there on screens. Don't rely on AI to do your critical thinking, to be creative. Actually pick up a guitar, play the piano, read a book, write, get creative, make up a play with your kids, all different kinds of things. Focus on those types of things as opposed to just sticking them in front of an iPad. Don't let them get on Baby Grok when that rolls out. You don't want your kids relying on artificial intelligence to take away their critical thinking skills, their thought process, all of that. We need to go back to kind of the way that humans have been for the last several centuries is just let's create community together, because AI is going to destroy that.
I was thinking earlier, I said, you better get your doctor locked down now, because the next generation coming out of med school are going to be the doctors that learned on AI. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, it can go to hell in a handbasket real quick. Jeff, you've written a book, Pickaxe, first of all, the social media platform. It's committed to freedom of speech, freedom of reach. If people are not familiar with it, producer Chad and I are becoming familiar with it, and hope to soon put our show up on that stream as well. It's called Pickaxe, Pickax. It's web-based right now, coming soon to an app store or a store near you. But you've also, Jeff, written a book called Following the Leader. I want you to talk about the book and the thoughts in the book.
Yeah, so with that one, it's in pre-order. We're gonna be releasing that here very, very soon. Just putting the final touches on it. But the whole idea on this book, Following the Leader, is getting you to actually figure out what's your worldview and what do you believe and why do you believe it. Because I think for a lot of people, and I'm seeing this trend right now, is that they're establishing their worldview to align themselves with their famous, leader, whether it's Donald Trump or a pastor or another politician, and they're finding their identity in that person or that group, as opposed to, okay, what do I actually believe and what's my worldview? So to me, I think that people should be looking at it from the perspective of, what do I believe? Why do I believe it? How do I know that it's true? And then you align yourself with people based upon who's most closely aligned with your perspective, as opposed to being, I'm a follower of this person, and so then you just regurgitate everything that they say. I want people to think for themselves, be a free thinker, and don't allow anybody to control and manipulate you. So we're going to be diving into this, and also how the intelligence agencies use particular specific tactics in order to get you to follow the leader, and manipulate you into the direction that they want to go. So I'm going to be exposing a lot of that in the book as well.
Jeff Dornick, it's Pickaxe. Go to the website, Pickaxe. If you want to be on a social media platform that's freedom of speech, freedom of reach, that's where you go. And Jeff, if they want to learn more about Pickaxe, it's pickaxe.com. If they want to follow you, get a copy of the book, where do they do that at?
Yeah, you guys can you follow me on Pickaxe. Also, you guys can order the book at jeffdornick.com. Also, really cool on Pickaxe as well. You get, Vigilant Fox just joined. We've got Children's Health Defense, Daily Cloud, bunch of really cool, awesome people on there. So when you guys get down there, you guys can see all of their articles and content and videos and shows and all that kind of stuff on there as well.
Jeff Dornick, a pleasure. Pickaxe.com. Follow him on the Pickaxe, and it's coming soon to the App Store. But right now it's all web-based, and they just go to pickaxe.com. Jeff, appreciate you hopping in here. Thank you very much. Jeff Dornick, founder, CEO of Pickaxe.com. Always good to have him in on the conversation. All right, good to have all of you here. I love some of the comments that are coming in. I was trying not to laugh while Jeff was talking. Let's see. Jeff says, how about a Pringles moment to get us through the long weekend? And please don't forget the memes today. Delilah couldn't have been Chad. Now, Chad does no wrong around here. Delilah, she gets all the blame. Sexist. The Pringles moment, I'm not going to refer to what that means. If you missed the Pringles moment last week, I'm sorry. Go back and watch it. And it was a mistake. I caught myself in the Pringles moment at about the time that I started what we call it has a name now, right? It's the Pringles moment. It's like the grassy knoll and the Pringles moment. It's got its own name now. The Pringles moment. We're not going to reenact the Pringles moment. Thank you very much. If you missed it, you're probably better off that way. That's when we were for just a couple of seconds. This was an NC-17 show, and I didn't mean for it to be. It just happened. The Pringles moment just happened. It was a wardrobe malfunction of sorts, but it had to do with Pringles and stuff. A long story. Jeff obviously is dwelling on this a little bit too much. That's all right, Jeff. We'll forgive you. All right, good to have you here. I told you I was going to do story time and pictures. I've got a story here. before I get to that, bombing of the cartels, that's a fascinating video we haven't talked about this week. Anybody see Timmy Walz get nasty, wishing for Donald Trump's death? What a disgusting man. I don't know if he's got tampons in his ears, holding his brains together, but Timmy Walz is becoming more and more disgusting. Every time he opens his mouth, talked about these rumors over the weekend that Trump hasn't done a press conference in 2 days, therefore he must be dead. And Tim Walz goes out in public and says, well, I was hoping there's a news story. One day there's going to be a news story. And you're like, what a disgusting human being. And again, there's certain people you don't want to stand next to when you're at the pearly gates. I don't know if there are pearly gates. We say that. And that's one of the guys. Timmy Walz is one of those guys that I don't know what's in his head, but I don't think there's a lot of good and righteous in there. I honest to God don't. I don't want to speak bad of it. He's one of God's children. I'll let God sort him out. But if you haven't seen that clip, it's really disgusting, but it just shows how far the Democrat Party has fallen in that the only thing they have is not ideals, not in the arena of intellect, not in the arena of conversation. We hate Trump. He's dead. We like it. That's it. Really, Timmy Walz is just, I think, case in point example as to why the Democrats got their heinies kicked so bad in November. And I think if they keep this up, I think next November, the midterm is going to look very, very positive. Now, coming up, you have some of these elections in the off year, the New York City mayor's race. You got some other ones, the Virginia governor's race. These are probably, a lot of these are going to be some blue victories, and the media then will spend the next several months telling you how it was a wake up call to Donald Trump. Listen, if a Democrat wins the governorship, and I hope Winsome Earl Winsome Sears Earl wins, because she's been on a program before. I like her. I hope she wins that Virginia race, but it's tough. Youngkin was a very tough race to get in there. And if Virginia goes blue, that's not a referendum on Donald Trump. That's just Virginia doing what Virginia does, with that Northern Virginia population being a bunch of bureaucrats from Washington, D.C. So watch out. There are going to be some off-year elections coming up, and they're going to try to paint that as some kind of a referendum on Trump. And I just don't see that if the New York City folks elect a commie by name that's public about a commie. They've been electing commies in that city for a long time. They just haven't been as vocal and visible about that. They've elected AOC. So again, be careful. The narrative will start to spin that this off-year election is going to be a referendum on Trump. And I haven't found any of these races that are getting all the oxygen in the room to be anything that's going to be a referendum on Donald Trump. All right, let's do story time. All right, this is the final show we're going to do with a defibrillator on the Rumble says, remember, Tim Walz is a friend of school shooters, transgender ones, apparently. Remember Tim Walz in the debate? I've had friends with the school shooters. Okay. Yep, I bet you are, Timmy. I bet you are. I told the story. We're a 3-day weekend. Tomorrow's our golf tournament. If you'd like to participate, I really would like to ask you to participate in our charity work. This is our largest fundraiser of the year. This is our 9th year. Next year will be 10 years. We've been doing this charity golf event. I started it when I first got onto the Northern Colorado radio station. You and I built this thing from the ground up. It's been a phenomenal time, and I appreciate all of your support through the years, and great sponsors we have. Lehman Lewis Financial Group we talk about. There's so many people through the years that made this happen. Corey Clinton back. He was a big-time sponsor. He'll be back with us next year, we hope. And so it's just been a fantastic kind of, a lot of you that have followed me in radio for years, you've watched this golf event churn and move, and you've opined, you've heard me opining about my work in Rwanda, and some of you are so very patient about that. I know some people go, I only work for domestic kids. Well, that's great. Give to domestic causes. And some people, everybody's motivated by something different. You guys indulge me to tell a heck of a lot of stories, and I like telling the stories. So yesterday I talked about the 17th anniversary of Gotcha Day. It's the day that I walked out of the orphanage, the PEFA orphanage, with my son. Many people have been to Rwanda with me. I've actually taken them there. It's now a security guard training site, but it used to be an orphanage, and now there's dormitories where they train security guards there. But there's a lot of photos that populate my collection from that orphanage. A lot of kids there. So there's it's a fascinating story. Yesterday was the 17th anniversary of walking out of the orphanage with my son and beginning the journey back to America. We arrived back in the USA on September the 10th, and that's Gotcha Day number 2. That's the day he landed foot in America for the first time. September the 3rd is the day we walked out of an orphanage. So it's a big time. That's one of the reasons the golf tournament's this time of year is because it's a commemoration of the adoption. Now, here's what I got to tell you. A lot of you have heard the adoption story. Some of you haven't heard that story that I told yesterday. Well, a lot of you that weren't with me in that journey 17, 18 years ago when beginning the adoption process. And it all began because I was leading a missions trip of a bunch of college students. They wanted to go to Rwanda. I had a friend in Rwanda. The church had a friend in Rwanda. I took them there. They wanted to go somewhere. They didn't want to just go to Mexico. I said, okay, we did a college missions trip. I was one of the chaperones and leading up a group of them. And boom, off we go to Rwanda. Adoption process begins, and it gets stuck. Rather than leaving that missions trip with my son, I got sent back to America. They said, come back and we'll try. Anyway, we were at a roadblock in the adoption process for about over a year. And just working, it's private adoption. Their agents, Rwanda did not recognize adoption agencies. It was just simply get a lawyer, we abiding by the law the best as we could. But it was tough to navigate because they just were not set up to easily allow for an adoption. It's all private adoption. So kids in orphanage working through it. So I go there after a year after the missions trip, and I have started what we were calling Jimmy's Orphan Project because I knew that my son lived in that community at this orphanage of about 60 or so kids, and I knew that there's going to be some kids that I wanted to take care of later on down the road because I didn't want him to go, what happened to those kids? So here's the fun story. I'm going to do the show and tell, then we'll go to Jay Ratliff, our aviation travel expert. So this is ties right into the golf event tomorrow. So I'm over in Rwanda almost a year and several months after the original missions trip, wondering if I'm going to get the adoption done. And I'm thinking on paper he's adopted in Rwanda, but I'd have to live there for 2 years before I could get him out of the country. Living in Rwanda 18 years ago was not in my purview. So I'm literally thinking, am I going to have to go through the process and secretly unadopt the kids that they've let me adopt, but they won't let me leave the country with them? So I'm saying my prayers one night. And you ever have one of those times you say your prayers and you're being very frank and very honest and maybe even you don't want to say anything you regret, but you're like, God, I don't know what the blank you're doing. I'm saying, I said, God, I'm here. My photographer friend had already gone home. I'm now in Rwanda, going to stay at least another week or two, try to solve this out. And I pray and I say, God, if you could give me some kind of a sign, I just need a little bit of a sign, just a little bit of something. Now, no one at the orphanage, no one knew that we were adopting the kid. The bishop over the church that oversaw the orphanage knew, but no one else, none of the workers knew, no one knew because he didn't want any kind of conflicts or ostracization. So I showed up to do the first presentation for what was Jimmy's Orphan Project, later become known as River's Promise. And we had never taken clothes, never taken a clothes donation. No one knew we were adopting, and my son comes walking into this meeting. I want you to look if you're watching the cameras, look at this photo, and you may have to blow your screen up. That's my son looking at me. We just handed out everybody school supplies, and that's my son on the far right. And I look at his shirt, and I looked at it twice, and the shirt says Colorado. Now, how did a kid in Kigali, Rwanda, get a shirt that says Colorado? We never took clothes. As a matter of fact, I knew all the clothes they wore because it's orphanage. They all just kind of swap clothes so they're the same size. He's staring at me like that. We're taking a photo, and I turned to my guy and said, is that a sign? And my guy says, yeah, you're not real smart, guy. That's a sign. Within 24 to 48 hours later, I had the signature I needed. Later on, I sent my guys back to that school, that orphanage. I said, I want that shirt. No one could find it. Never been seen again. I have photos from 2 years later of taking photos of the kids in the orphanage. I was still taking care of them, and no one had that shirt. This is another photo of that very day. Get around, the TV cameras were there filming. There's little me right there in the middle, and I just happened to pick up the kid. That's my son next to me, and I wasn't supposed to pick him up because it don't show favoritism, but he's got a shirt on in that photo that says Colorado. So let me tell you, if you ever need a sign, I don't know if your sign will be so obvious, but sometimes God has some very unique and curious ways of letting you know that he has not forgotten you. So there's your inspirational story. No joke, that shirt does not exist. We went back and the ladies at the orphanage said, oh, sometimes kids just put things on. We don't know what they didn't know. I was offering hundreds and hundreds of dollars for that shirt, and no one could find it. Years later, it's never been seen since. It was never seen again. The kid that usually they swap clothes because they're the same size, he never wore it. It just, the shirt appeared magically, and it disappeared just the same way. There's your inspirational story. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend Jay Ratliff, aviation and travel expert, jumps in here. He inspires you with all the great things you need to know about travel and aviation. Good morning, Jay.
Hey, good morning. I loved that story. And yeah, a lot of times I think God looks down at me and says, this is the dumbest man I've ever created, but he still doesn't get it.
I did. I turned to my friend Willie, and the TV cameras are there is a Rwandan version of CNN 18 years ago. Not a lot of white people doing stuff in Rwanda, so that was a big deal. TV cameras are there, and I looked at him and I go, do you think that's a sign? He goes, you are not smart Mzungu.
What more do you need, my friend? Exactly.
24 to 48 hours. I mean, the course of events that happened for that, running across government officials who knew me that I had not seen, the whole thing, it just, boom, from that point it spiraled. So that's
Wow.
a good thing. That's a photo.
Love it.
I have a former guy that played NFL football, a good friend. He gets around his friends, his big tough guy friends. He goes, tell the story. And before he can say tell the story, he starts crying. A big old 400. He's like, I love this story. It's kind of fun.
It's a good one.
It's a great one. All right, Jay Ratliff, aviation and travel expert. We've been talking a lot about changes happening at the beloved Southwest Airlines. An interesting one here. I think producer Chad might have found a photo of it. Double barricade on the cockpit. It looks like Southwest is going to be the first provider to implement this.
Yeah, and right now Boeing and Airbus are making the new aircraft with this, what we call a secondary barrier that's available and being put on newer airplanes. This is something that in 2018, the U.S. government said is going to be on every airplane. Because as you and I fly, when someone needs to come out of the cockpit, what happens? The lead flight attendant goes into the cockpit because we always have two people in there at all times. And then whichever crew member needs to use the lavatory steps out of the cockpit, uses the lavatory. They close the cockpit door behind them. And you've got the flight attendant standing there with the beverage cart turned to the side, kind of blocking, access to the cockpit. And the thought is we need something more than just a person that perhaps could be overpowered. So what they came up with was this idea of a secondary cockpit door. And the idea is it's just going to increase security, prevent people from gaining access to the cockpit, even though we now have a reinforced cockpit door that's there. And as aviation tends to always do, we're looking back at the last attack, trying to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Well, we should be looking forward to prevent the next attack, but we're always a reactionary industry, and that's what they're doing. So you'll start to see these secondary cockpit doors appearing on every aircraft in the country over the course of the next several years. And all the new airplanes will come equipped with it. And you'll see it being used not only here in the United States, but I'm sure around the world as well, because it's just a good thing to have to provide an extra layer of security between the cabin area and, of course, the flight deck and the controls of the aircraft.
Talk about looking backwards. September 11th, a lot of folks even watching this show weren't even alive then. That's been a long time ago. And that's kind of what started a lot of that cockpit security was the attacks of September 11th. Has it really taken to 2025 for us to go, oh, we should put a secondary barrier up? What a great idea. We ain't real smart either. I mean, very, very slow, kind of like looking at a shirt that says Colorado and go, maybe we should do something.
Yeah, we're looking at a week away from that anniversary, my friend. And it's hard to believe it's been all these years since those attacks. But I'll never forget that day when the first airplane hit. We were trying to figure out what happened because a lot of the reports obviously were that it was a smaller airplane. But when the second aircraft hit the second tower, we knew we were under attack. We knew it was bin Laden, and we knew that there would be other planes involved. The FBI and the FAA had been briefing us every month on the spectacular attacks that were being projected. We were worried about bombs and checked luggage, which at that time domestically wasn't being screened. We were worried about surface air missiles. We had a lot of security briefings on things we were trying to do behind the scenes. But the attacks of that day had nothing to do with a breakdown in security or airline protocol. Because at the security checkpoint, you could go through with a knife or a box cutter as long as the blade wasn't more than 4 inches in length. The protocol on an aircraft during a hijacking was to cooperate with the hijackers, land the airplane, and let the law enforcement officers do what they needed to. We had no idea, and there was no idea that the aircraft itself could be used or would be used as a missile. So we've learned from that, but you're right. We've done nothing but try to prevent that same style of attack versus trying to do things to prevent it from ever happening again. But this secondary cockpit door is just the latest in a string of security measures that are being taken as we try to prevent that from happening again. Look, I'm more worried about somebody going to a Denver or a small regional airport hopping that fence, getting to an aircraft, taxiing it and taking it off before anybody has a chance to have a military scramble escort to intercept, and that airplane being used as a missile as those were on 9/11 with no passengers on board. So we've got to do a lot more to secure the security of aircraft that remain overnight at more than 400 airports across the country. That's my concern, along with making sure that we screen employees between the time they go from the parking lot to the tarmac. So, yeah, I mean, as we look forward, I kind of shake my head. My friend saying, I wish we weren't spending so much time trying to prevent that from happening. But I also wonder, as this anniversary approaches, how many schools actually teach what happened on that day? Because, to us, it was recent memory and we'll never forget it. But I also remember that day thinking, is this the new norm for us? Are we going to start seeing, like other countries, malls and train stations and airports being bombed on a regular basis? And thank God, thanks to the work of a lot of hardworking men and women behind the scenes, we've been able to avoid that for all of these years. I would have bet you anything back then that that was going to be the new norm for us, and thank God it has not.
Watch the segue, Jay Ratliff. I am a professional broadcaster, and I'm going to say this. We're going from bombs to boobs now.
There you go.
And our story, bombs to boobies. American Airlines is telling one of their passengers, hey, honey, before you get on this flight, you need to button up.
Yeah, she was wearing a crop top and leggings, and her midriff was showing, but she had this great big flannel shirt on over top. And when you look at the image, I didn't see anything that would have been obscene or would have been perhaps other passengers being offended. And that's what this lady was saying. She was a play bunny or what, Playboy, Playmate, whatever. And she's got 1 million followers. So she's boarding and she sees all these other people that are wearing less clothes than her, that are far more revealing than hers. And yet she gets stopped for some reason. And she says, I just don't get it. Now, if the picture that was shown on social media is how she was dressed, I think American Airlines is going to have a hard time explaining why that was considered inappropriate attire. Of course, it's subjective. So when you have one person saying another person may not, I may be looking at something saying that's not inappropriate and other people might say it is. Now, if you get on board an aircraft with obscene wording on a shirt, that's a no-brainer. You've got to turn that shirt inside out or put something else on. That's not speculation. If it smells like you've not taken a bath in 3 months, also no speculation there. You're not going to board the aircraft. So, but when it comes to attire, that is such a subjective topic that it's very difficult for the airlines to list the criteria because, we're not going to let you get on with a thong and a bathing suit or whatever you might happen to be when you're flying. You've got to have enough clothes on, but you also going to have too many clothes on. We've had people that have tried to avoid paying for an overweight bag by putting 17 layers of clothes on and waddling down to the security checkpoint. And those people aren't allowed on board the airplane either. But I think she's got a case. American Airlines has apologized, and we'll see where this goes. But it's another one of those scenarios where one individual's interpretation of what they consider appropriate or inappropriate is going to come into play here, and we'll see where it goes.
Listen, I've seen a lot of inappropriate clothing on planes, and
I bet you do.
I see a lot of it. And I have a new pet peeve. We had a pet peeve segment yesterday. People getting on planes and not using headphones, but thinking we all want to hear their audio on their telephone.
Please. And that's one of the reasons I'm glad that we've not allowed conversations on phones on an airplane. I mean, as loud as people scream into them as they are now, I don't want to be sitting on a flight for 4 hours listening to somebody's medical procedures. They scream into the phone.
Yeah.
And how people don't think that's annoying really confuses me, because anytime that it happens at a restaurant or in a public area, I mean, I go out of my way to look at them kind of like, excuse me, I guess I should go over and say, would you please be quiet? I don't want to hear that. But, most of us are too polite. We don't want to do that. We don't want to cause a scene and all that kind of stuff. But it does get annoying. And, fortunately, most people, look, we have 2.5 million people a day that fly. We don't have a large number of people that do that, but just enough that really annoys the majority of people that fly. And it's sad for those that seem to think that that's an okay thing to do.
We're told it's frowned upon, but I said throat punches would be real good for them, but they've told that's frowned upon. All right, real quick, the FAA is dealing with a shortage, and it's not a shortage that we want to hear about. air traffic control. We've had a lot of safety issues this year, a lot of red flags, and now we find out there's some air traffic shortage.
Well, yeah, as though we need a new challenge, right? Because we've got a shortage of air traffic controllers. We've got antiquated equipment. We've talked about that. But now the President Trump is making sure that we kind of increase the flow of people going through the training program and trying to make sure we have the facilities to do it. The one thing that we're lacking is experienced trainers to train this influx of increased air traffic control candidates. So you've got a limited number of people that are working their tails off. These men and women are working extra hours, extra shifts. They're getting bonuses and incentives. But we've got to find more qualified trainers so that we can keep increasing the number of air traffic control candidates going through the process. Remember, when someone's hired, it could be 4 or 5 years between the time they start and the time they're on the job doing themselves by themselves unsupervised. So there's a lot that has to happen, and you have to have a lot of qualified individuals that help make that take place. So the latest challenge right now that's ongoing is, yes, a shortage of these trainers. And again, President Trump has indicated from early on that his 2 goals with air traffic management is to increase the technology and increase the number of air traffic controllers. We've had issues with both of those for decades. And if he is successful over the course of the next 2 to 3 years to fix this or greatly move the ball down the field, it's going to be something that's going to impact travel for the next 20 years. I've told people it's a lot like when he makes a Supreme Court nomination. It changes the country for me, for the better, for the next 20 years. And it's going to be the same thing here. If he can fix this, then as air traffic control air traffic demand increases and doubles over the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to be in a position where we can accommodate that. And he's making an impact, if successful, that's going to be substantial for air traffic and the economy itself over the course of the next 15 years. Right now, air traffic control, FAA, they get whatever money falls off the table. Yeah. It's never been a priority prior to this administration, and I'm very glad to see what's begun. I just need to see it continue.
Jay Ratliff, aviation travel guru. Some topics we didn't get to. We're short on time, but that's okay. There's always next week. I appreciate you, my friend. Got your final 3 hole sponsors for the golf tournament.
At the 9. We'll try to do better next year, my friend. But yeah, at least half the course we want to be out there for you because it's such a great cause. And thank you for letting us be a small part of it.
I appreciate it. JRatliff.com. If you're out at the golf event tomorrow, you'll see these signs that say Day Trade Fun. That basically is Jay Ratliff. Jay Ratliff, and check it out if you want to learn more about what Jay does in his real job besides Yap with Me. Is Day Trade Fun or JRatliff.com. Jay, appreciate you, my friend. We'll talk next week. God bless.
Have a wonderful time tomorrow, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. There you have it, Jay Ratliff, JRatliff.com. Day Trade Fund. Check out his website, 9 holes. You'll see his signage on tomorrow at the golf event. If you're not going to be there, what's your problem? You should be there. You should get your butts there. It's going to be fun. By the way, I'd like to encourage you, if you're not able to participate, I know some people don't golf, some people are out of town, some people just have other things going on. And so there's a lot of folks that maybe say, man, that golf thing sounds fun, but I'm not a golfer. You're not going to be there, okay? I forgive you in advance for your slackingness, kind of, a little bit. I'll ask Jesus to help me. No, but here's what I would like you to do. I would like for some of you to consider a donation today that we can count towards our biggest fundraising event of the year. So maybe you're one of those people that wait till the end of the year to make a big donation. You can do that now. It's just as easy to do now. Maybe you can make a small donation today, but anything that comes in really this week, I've been keeping a track of anything coming in that's non-designated, meaning general fund, greatest need, that I'm counting that towards our fundraising goal at the golf tournament. So if you've contemplated, considered, you've heard about what we do with Rivers Promise, I would encourage you to make a donation today. Let me go through the rundown again. And again, I want to take you back. If you missed show and tell earlier, this is the inspiration. It all started there. And a lot of you, that's an amazing story. Some of you never heard that story about the Colorado shirt. That shirt does not exist. That was a sign from God. Hey, you're on the right path. You do this thing. And about the time I closed up that orphanage, by the way, that little girl in the middle is named Vanessa. Tried to see about adopting little Vanessa, but we actually were able to find some long-lost family that she was in an orphanage because they just couldn't feed her. And so I sent Vanessa to school for about 2 more years. And another organization I partnered with out of London taught her family how to do subsistence farming and cultivate some crops so they could sell it and support this long lost family member that had been abandoned by another part of their family. So that's Vanessa. That's Musa. I lost track with Musa. I don't know where Musa went. But a lot of the kids I've stayed in touch with at the orphanage. But when we closed that orphanage down, that's how we ended up at a Legacy Christian Academy building a school, is because I thought my work in Rwanda was done. I got the kid. We've closed up an orphanage. I'm done. And they took me out of town to where it was worse than I'd ever seen in my life, and into this area called the Kamoni area, about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Kigali. And that's where we started Legacy Christian Academy. But it all started, and I was like, God, am I even on the right path here? And there you can see, if you put up the screen, kids showed up that I was waiting to get out of the country for a year and a half of fighting legal battles, and showed up with a Colorado shirt. We had never seen it before, never seen it since. And I tried to buy the shirt, but we couldn't find it. No one knew where he got the shirt, but that was my sign that we're on the right path. So, hey, and again, I know not everybody's motivated by, not everybody's going to travel to a third world country and start an organization. I realize it seems quite normal to me to do what I did, but I realize most people don't do that. Most people don't start a cause, start a mission, start a nonprofit. People just don't do it. To me, it seemed normal. It's the right thing to do, because the good book says the steps of the righteous ordered of God. I knew there's a plan, and we've tried to follow that plan for 17 years building this thing. So tomorrow's our largest single fundraiser of the year, traditionally for 8 years. And if you'd like to help us keep on this track, on this mission, there's a lot of ways to do so. I want to break it down. You can see the photo there. There's let me back out of that one and let me show you the other photo. This is the first presentation we ever did with these kids. At this point, all those kids holding up books are now grown. None of them were going to school at the moment. A couple of times they would get to go to school. If you see right where the House of Lakey logo is, there's a young man standing there. That is John Paul. John Paul, his parents both died of HIV. Him and his siblings were dumped, but he was kind of lost at that time of life because he was 15, 16 years old, got taken out of his life, orphaned and stuck in an orphanage. And he's married now. He has a child. He calls me his father. He says, this is my first grandbaby. I tell him I'm too young to have a grandbaby, but John Paul, I've stayed in touch. And I could just name some of the kids here, but that's our first presentation. Those kids did not go to school in that photo. That's from the orphanage director. I said, what is your biggest need? And they said, we need school fees. They said, the kids aren't dressed great, but they have clothes. They don't eat great. We would like to do better, but the school fees are the long-term help we can do. So we did this presentation, and they were also excited to get school supplies, and that's what we did. And a lot of them sent off to school. And there's my son again. He had no clue that I was adopting him. He had no clue that he was 48 hours away from leaving the orphanage. He had no clue about anything that was going to happen. And within 10 days, he would be at a home in the United States of America. He had no clue what was about to interrupt his life. But listen, if you could donate today to Rivers Promise, any amount is good. If you give $10, you can see those kids don't have uniforms on. One of the things we had to provide for them are all school uniforms. It's required. Even in the public school system there, you have a uniform and you got to pay for it. And, they may have one or two uniforms for free, but not many. So we've got hundreds of kids that we're taking care of. At our school, we have kids we send to other schools, and we have to give them, you have to give them a uniform. And we have to replace our uniforms regularly because for a lot of our kids in our area, that's all they have. That's their clothing. If they go play in the creek, they go play in the river, they're in their school uniform. They don't have the school play clothes like we used to have growing up, or play shoes. It's what they get. So we're always having to replace shoes and clothing because that's all they have. It's $10 a uniform. I think most of you could probably do a $10 donation today. If you're listening on the podcast later, you could do that as well. I'd love for you to do that. If you give $30 in the increment of that, $30, again, it feeds a child 2 meals a day for 2 meals a day for a month. Sorry, I had 4 thoughts in my head. That's 2 meals a day. That's $30. If you give the whole kit and caboodle $65, you do it for the whole year, do it month to month, whatever. $65 sponsors a kid, sends them to school supplies, uniform, health insurance, and also those 2 meals a day. So 65 is all encompassing of some of those other amounts I gave you. You get the idea. There's mathematics that you can do. And I don't know what your comfort level is, but if you want to see some kids bring joy, I know all of them. I couldn't adopt all of them. I only got the one on the right. I tried to get a couple more, but he got stuck with me all by himself. He gets to be the only son. Therefore, I use the hashtag the heir. He's the heir to the kingdom. And but if you want to put a smile on some kid's face, all you got to do is help us out. So tomorrow's biggest fundraiser of the year. I won't belabor the point, but if you could do something, would you do something? We're going to count everything that comes in today towards our fundraising goal, and I appreciate anything you do. And if you'd like to participate, please do. Just go to riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org. Either way will work, and you can make a donation today, and we hope you will. We will count it towards our giving totals for tomorrow, biggest fundraiser of the year. Now, some of you like to text, and I want to give you a way to give in text, okay? How about that? I've not done this on the show before. You can find it at the website, riverspromise.com, on the donation page, but if you text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 720-726-1941. That's 720-726-1941. Text the word GIVE, and that should bring up an opportunity for you to give via your cell phone. 720-726-1941. Use the word GIVE, and that should get you to a donation opportunity there. So however you give, riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org, 720-726-1941. Now, to cover all bases, I know a lot of you that watch this program are more check writers, okay? It's generational. The younger crowd likes to text and give. Older crowd likes to sign a check. I get it. I don't care which you do. If you do drop a check in the mail today, and I mean this sincerely, would you email us, info@jimmylakey.com. Let us know, hey, I'm dropping a check in the mail. Here's the amount. And again, $10 is great. 10,000 is great. They're all wonderful. We appreciate them. But if you drop that check in the mail, let us know so we can count that in towards our total because we won't have it by tomorrow. Again, text to give 720-726-1941. Just type give, G-I-V-E, 720-72. I make sure I have that number right. 72. 72. My computer's kind of wigging out here on me. I said 726. Yeah, I'll make sure. I'll put it up at 726-1941. Yeah, we'll make sure to give you the right number. My computer got dim on me. I'm like, oh, crap, I can't see that now. 720-726-1941. Text the word give. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be off tomorrow, but we are going to do the meme roulette. I see Scott there. Scott sponsored 4 kids. He did indeed, and those letters should be coming. He should be getting letters. I believe one of our viewers, Stacy, also just sponsored a kid in the last week or so. She should be getting letters back into our office, and we'll get them out to your sponsored kid. But if you want to sponsor a specific kid, go to our website. You can see all the sponsorships available, or those amounts are good whether you have a direct connection to a kid or not. Anyway, so feel free if you donate. And again, I'm not trying to strong arm anybody out there. I want you to know that I want everybody to be generous, and I have priorities in my life. I give every month. It's on automatic deduction. I give to my local church. I contribute there. And I think that's a very important thing. Now, somebody asked me one time, I'm not going to give to the church. I'm going to give to you. And I say, don't do that. Don't put me between you and the place that you go to worship every week. You take care of them accordingly. That's just my preference. I don't want you to do that. Somebody asked me, I'm going to give you my tithe and offering. I'm like, no, that's between you and the Lord. Don't be bringing me into this. I'm not, we ain't beggars here. At Rivers Promise, God's provided for us for a long time, 17 years we've been doing this. The golf tournament's been going 9, and we've covered it. Sometimes it's been tight, sometimes it's been rough, but closing it up and packing it up is not in my vocabulary, and never shall it be indeed. So anyway, we just appreciate you. Arloa says, I'm going to get a donation page today. I'm not sure everyone else knows the platform will also. Anyway, thank you, Arloa. We appreciate it. Again, any amount's fine. $10. I mean, $10. There's been times in my life I probably couldn't rub $10 out at my checking account going, all right, yep, that's a crappy job. Therefore, I didn't do those jobs anymore. Jeff says, Palisade Peach, did I miss something? I thought you were from Texas. Well, yesterday we had a little soiree at my house. We producer Chad came over. Our buddy Kevin came over. His significant other Jennifer came over. We just had a little volunteer soiree. We were stuffing the bags that go to the golf tournament. Everybody gets a gift bag and it has things like golf balls, water bottles, snacks. It has all sorts of stuff in there, sponsorship gifts, right? And we're stuffing the bags yesterday. And somehow, I don't even remember the context of it. Somebody talked about, somebody liked peaches. They like peach schnapps or peach something. And I said, that's the Palisade peach, and got confused, and everybody, nope. Anyway, I said, that was my dancing aid back in the day, Palisade peach. If I ever give you $1 bill, it's got glitter on it. Now you know why. The Palisade peach was on the march. So producer Chad heard that, and this morning decided that my title on the screen should be the Palisade peach. So there you have it. I am from Texas, but every once in a while, those people on the western slope of Colorado need a little bit of the Palisade peach, if you know what I mean. Really make a donation. Riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org. We won't be here tomorrow. We'll be at the golf tournament. But you know what this means? It's time for the final meme roulette of the day, Thursday's edition, September the 4th, year of our Lord, 2025. Everybody's ready? I'm going to spin it. Say it with me. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There's comedian Steve Byrne, one of my favorite. Lefters are spreading a rumor that Trump died over the weekend. It's obviously not true. He was nowhere near Chicago. That's true. He was not near Chicago. That's how you stay alive. Avoid Denver as well. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Political cartoon here. You see Gavin Newsom. Trump's authoritarian tendencies are interfering with our authoritarian policies. And Gavin has a whole list of mandatory electric cars, banned guns, no parents' rights, no water, highest taxes, COVID mandates, DEI mandates, regulations, no voter ID. And yet he says Trump has authoritarian policies. Gavin Newsom has let the Aquanet get to his head, and his brain cells killed too many of them. Round around the globe we go. Here we swear we steal the memes from, no one knows. Kids these days are soft. I'm pretty sure I died once when I was 7, and my mom made me walk it off. Remember those metal playgrounds? You'd fall off the monkey bars. Are you bleeding? Is it broken? Get out there, boy. Rub some dirt on it. Yeah, we were a different breed back then, just a different breed. None of these pussified kids that we have today. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Well, we got the Babylon Bee here. Headline, Hunter Biden tells dad he's going to need a new boat. If you're not watching, you see the video image of the cartel's boat being shipped, sunk as it leaves the Venezuelan narco-terrorist state. And Hunter says, Daddy, we got a new boat. They destroyed our boat. Trump destroyed my boat. Yep. He had hookers and blow on that boat, and they're now shark bait. Hunter Biden. I don't know if he did. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from. I hope that wasn't Greta Thunberg's vote. Remember Greta's. Okay, she's in Gaza. She's heading to Gaza. Okay, good. Because Greta's out there parasailing around on a boat now, too. She's going to make a statement for something. All right, here's the Mona Lisa, kind of. It says skin cells die, hair cells die, but fat cells in the belly have just accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, and they have eternal life. You know, there is more truth to that heresy than you could ever imagine. Skin cells die, hair cells, dare take off the hat, fat cells in the belly. At least you're Christian. At least I know. That means my fat cells are going to spend eternity with me in heaven, right? But with something about a new body, there's a whole new body that's supposed to happen. Just remember that. Keep hope alive. Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a 3-meme Thursday, and that means we're out of memes. That means we have milked it for all it's dry, all it's worth, and like teats on a bull, ain't nothing coming out of that one. So God bless you. All right, tomorrow we are going to be off. Producer Chad will be playing. He's leading up one of our foursomes. It's called a Veterans Foursome, and they're going to be playing, representing the veterans out there. We got a lot of great foursomes. There is actually still time. Vaseline and a crowbar, I can still actually get you into the tournament because I know a guy. And the way we do the tournament is we rent out the whole course. And so if we overstock the pond a little bit, it's okay. We're not interfering with anybody. We have the whole course reserved for a good portion of the day. So if you'd like to get in and you're feeling the old FOMO, fear of missing out, listen, give into that FOMO. Register. Email us. We'll get you in. I promise you we will. And it's all donation, it's all fun. And if you are playing tomorrow, check your emails. We have sent out what we call the strategy sheet. And if you want to win the tournament, this is not a qualifier for the PGA. This is a fundraising event, and we sell mulligans, we sell string, we sell all sorts of things that we call strategy pieces that help you win the tournament. You can even buy a hole-in-one. It's all for sale. It's all available, and it's all for charity, right? riverspromise.org is the website. If you'd like to get in, I can still get you in. Just make sure you do it soon. And if you'd like to make that donation for our largest fundraising event of the year, I'd like for you to do so today. Again, $10 is a uniform. I'm giving you kind of what your money can go to. $30 is 2 meals a day, so about 60 meals for a child for a month. And $65 is a full sponsorship. We need somebody to sponsor a class. We lost a class sponsor this year. Some hard times hit, and they've not been able to recoup. If you can sponsor an entire class, we have a brand new group of kindergartners that start class next week. And if you or your business would like to sponsor an entire class, that is available. And those kids will write you letters. They will be your pen pals. They will be your friends. And you can make, if you want to, just every year, just follow them up the path and watch what God does in their life, because you and I were faithful with the little bit of money we had, and we made a difference. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. Tomorrow, I'll see a lot of you at the golf course. If I don't see you at the golf course, the Palisade Peach will miss you. But again, make those donations. I'd like to count them towards our overall strategy and our overall calculation. Tomorrow is really an important day for us, and I appreciate your help at it. Riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org, and we'll see you then. And in the meantime, my friends, we'll be back here Monday morning. Good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise, and everything works. We should be back here Monday morning. But we're all gonna get a 3-day weekend. You're gonna be reprieved from me. If you miss me and you gotta hear my voice, go back to the podcast. Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, Podbean. This show right here will be live on all the streaming platforms within just a matter of a few minutes today. Check it out. You can hear me tomorrow and all weekend. Defibrillator says, great show, Jimmy. We'll check out riverspromise.com tonight. I like it. Check it out tonight. Check it out tomorrow. Check it out today. And I'll put up that text number at my Facebook page, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page, making it easy to text and give. You ready for that? You can text right now to 720-726-1941. Text the word give, 720-726-1941. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.